If Friday's election of the Chief Minister of the Punjab was meant to lift the haze of uncertainty over the province, and by extension national politics, it accomplished exactly the opposite. Yet another political question headed back to the superior judiciary. Many legal experts say the reprieve Hamza Shahbaz earned in the Punjab Assembly is temporary and that the Superior Court would overturn that in a matter of hours. However, the matter has been adjourned until Monday. Some have said that it was the Apex Court's own ruling earlier, in response to a presidential reference, that opened the door to what happened on Friday in the Assembly. Whatever happens next will be another sad, sordid chapter in Pakistan's history, where political parties and leaders have found it impossible to talk to, and negotiate with, one another, and a political issue will yet again be settled by the judiciary. Whatever happens next will be another sad, sordid chapter in Pakistan's history. The judiciary may have displayed a marked propensity for deciding political questions, whether with rulings on specific petitions or, as was the case, on a recent presidential reference, but prudence warrants a much more cautious approach in a charged environment, which has polarized the country and split it into two camps. All this political and, dare I say, judicial wrangling is happening against the backdrop of a bleak economic landscape with huge spikes in global energy and food prices, with massive economic mismanagement at home driving inflation to unbearable levels. Whether this latest crisis was also triggered by former Prime Minister Imran Khan's falling out with the military over the appointment of DGIC last year or by subsequent events is immaterial. It is equally immaterial whether divisive, populist slogans should be used in a country as delicately balanced as ours, especially at a time of a grave economic crisis. What is of substance and counts is that such tactics produce a rich dividend. What else could be so effective as to neutralize the all-powerful establishment as the recent by-election results suggested? At a time when the PMLN would have ideally been looking at the by-election result on a constituency-by-constituency basis and analyzing if a different strategy could have delivered a better result, it seems to be directionless. Or worse, being pulled in two different directions. It has been an oversimplification for some PMLN leaders to say that the 20 by-elections in Punjab were all on seats that became vacant when the PTI's and PMLQ's floor-crossing members were disqualified, so for PMLN to win 4 of these seats was an achievement. That argument carries no weight as the PMLN's stance on the 2018 elections has been quite clear that the whole electoral exercise was rigged and hence not credible. It can't have its cake and eat it too. So were the 2018 elections rigged or weren't they? The PMLN has to be consistent in its stance. The inconsistency in the PMLN stance on this issue as on the economy or even continuing in office for long after the April vote of no confidence, when party leader Nawaz Sharif and Mariam Nawaz are understood to have favored a quick dissolution and fresh elections as opposed to Shahbaz Sharif's stance, is what must be confusing and demotivating the supporter and the voter. Party leaders including some cabinet ministers have felt compelled to go public with their endorsement, for example, of Finance Minister Miftar Ismail, while one minister has declared support and admiration for former Finance Minister Ishaq Dar and seemed to suggest the latter was better suited to handle the economic challenges. These statements came against the backdrop of suggestions that Mr. Dar may be headed home to steer the economy. So far, among the party rank and file and its voters there is one supreme leader and that is Nawaz Sharif. Mariam Nawaz is developing her own persona and constituency in terms of popular politics. Sadly, the Prime Minister and his son, the now trustee Punjab Chief Minister, have the charisma of a thick tree trunk. Whatever happens in the Supreme Court in terms of Hamza Shahbaz's fate, at the very latest general elections will have to be held by early autumn next year. Given what has happened in the by-elections, it is not clear how much ground the PMLN can claw back. The economy will take months to stabilize if there are no more dramatic political shocks in store, and inflation will also not be curbed overnight. Given where we are today, a contraction of the economy is likely to cut the current account deficit. This may lead to job losses for poorer sections of society whose budgets have been decimated by inflationary pressures, adding insult to injury. Apart from the PTI, which has pioneered social media messaging and has clearly got the first mover's advantage. Other parties such as the PMLN, PPP, GUEF, ANP and MQM seem a million miles away in this key area. Since the 2018 elections, some 15 meters new voters have been added to the electoral rolls. It is these new voters who, regardless of socio-economic or educational status, have smartphones and use social media. When the powers that be were foolhardy enough to arrest media personality Imran Riaz Khan, they did nothing but enhance his popularity among his 6 meters strong YouTube audience. Relying solely on backroom deals, public meetings and traditional media may have worked in the past, but depending on them to deliver continuing electoral successes in this day and age will be imprudent and the source of rude shocks in every election from now on. Are the PTI's rivals prepared to up their game in the 21st century as a massive demographic transformation has happened and continues to take place? This is a question whose answer will most likely decide the outcome of the next general election in the country. The writer is a former editor of Dawn. abbas.nasir@hotmail.com. Published in Dawn, July 24, 2022.